Acute pain doesn't always mean acute injury, and this is a case presentation of one such incident where somebody presents with pain that they feel is an acute injury based in damage, although they don't understand where the damage could have come from for them to feel such severe pain in that situation. But when you explore the history, it's the same pain, but it manifests from long-term emotional overload and suppression. See if this case study makes sense. Hi, my name's Drew Codell. I'm a physiotherapist. I'm fascinated in the process of pain, its onset, its duration, and helping find ways to recover from it. And quite often people describe situations that are painful. There's a physical representation of that, but it doesn't always fit a history that fits with an acute injury or acute episode of physical overload, trauma that we describe as this event happened, I felt pain. We associate the pain with the circumstances of its onset, and we look for meaning in that moment. And quite often we mistake the pain we get with one of those associated factors. So a gentleman had an 8-week history of lower back pain, and the onset was sitting in the chair in his mother's house. And I'm guessing he sat in that chair lots of times, so the chair's not a dangerous thing. And he's never had a history of back pain. And since that time, he's had pain every day, pretty much all day, with varying degrees of spasms that have come that he can't put his finger on. It's stopping his sleeping, he's distressed by it, he's attempted all the things he's seen on YouTube, and nothing's got any better. So he's feeling it's an acute damaged back, that's his impression, but he doesn't know why it happened or where. So when you look at that as a history, it's not like someone said I fell down, I had a car crash or an event, so really there's not much evidence for injury. You check the medical history as to why someone would get a sudden onset, and there's no sinister background to that in his presentation either, so you check that as a health professional in all cases. And then you go explore and say what else was happening around the time. And he was a heroin addict 15 years ago, and he was open about that, but he said, I'm 100% sorted with me mental health, 100% sorted, I've got it all that sorted, I've done really well with that, because his problem was with his thoughts and words, and he would take the drug to block that. So he's physically a fit person, but obviously had mental, emotional stresses in the past that he'd used drugs to block his thoughts, if you like. Never really considered the association with physical pain, because he was physically a healthy person. When you look at the circumstances that happened around the time, and I'm suggested that there's other things to lead to that conversation where it didn't fit an acute injury, although the acute manifestation was distressing and might have some other factors behind it. And that's where we got into that side of the conversation. So he said, are you saying that what might have been going on can affect me physically? So he had this real awakening, maybe, that which he thought he knew could also affect his body, almost like, how could it possibly? I knew it could affect my mind like that and lead me to taking drugs, but could the stress response affect me physically? And I explained it depends on how you're feeling the stress of the situation. We feel things differently in our bodies, and then there's different contexts. And when you look at what was happening for him, he said, oh gosh, a year ago, he'd lost 6 different people, deaths, close people, associates, friends of friends, that each one felt that he felt distressed with. And he did say, he said, for nearly all of that year, he said, I just pushed through, because there was so many, one after the other. There was 1 month, the next month, and there was a couple in 1 month, and close people to him. And he said, I was overwhelmed, but I just made myself so busy that I kept on going, and at the end of that year I felt that surge of depression, which was towards the end of last year. And so I recognised that to use all of the things that had helped me get over the heroin. And I started to meditate again, I started to talk about it, I started to cry, I started to do all the things that had helped me recover. I realised that that overwhelm of all that grief had triggered the same patterns, if you like, but rather than him leading to drugs, he went into depressed state. A certain length of time experience of that, then recognised he kind of started to work through it. But he said the day that my back pain started, I got a new relationship, a new partner, and he was excited by that and all the joy that a new partner brings, a new relationship brings. But he recognised that as part of the grief, his mum was going to be on her own, and she felt responsible for her, that loneliness that she felt. But he also felt excited about the new relationship. So he spent time since then at his partner's, a few days, and then the other time he spent at his mum's. He said, since that 8 weeks ago, I've never been back in my home, and that's always been my safe space. That's always been my place where I've been able to meditate and do my this and that and the other, the things that helped him recover from the heroin addiction and the things that have kept him right. But that surge of overwhelm and that void that he can start to get himself out of, which he felt really good about, then the balance wasn't quite tipped, or he hadn't quite worked through everything when he's come to the realisation that he's going to move forward with his life, but he's also still got the responsibility as a man. So he's torn a little bit between the two, and that lack of him attending to himself or going to his safe space is the thing that potentially tips the balance for him and represents pain. Now, as soon as he saw this, and as soon as he saw the connection physically, and we did some tests of movements and nerve tests and reflexes and movements that were all positive, and spasm and pain and restriction, as soon as he realised it, I said, do the same test, and he had no pain. So it is an epiphany. It's fascinating to watch, because as soon as the body feels safe, and the mind sees that the body's safe, then the mind feels safe, and as soon as the mind's safe, then the body feels safe. There has to be something to break the cycle and the catalyst for change. And it's hard when it's locked into a thought emotion pattern that's invisible to the person with it. We're all vulnerable to that. But once you make the connection, and he did, I said, I've got it. I know what to do, and I know I can incorporate physical things into his self-care routine that is pretty well boxed off, because when you recover from heroin, when a lot of people die from that addiction, he's got some good skills, and you just have to hone that and recognise there's a physical element to that, integrate that, and he's going to do well. So for us, it's an acute onset of pain. It's not a chronic pattern, but there's chronic behaviours bedded in there that can appear and can manifest in lots of different ways. So the more aware you are of these interconnections between emotional charges and manifestation of symptoms, yes, you get them checked out, yes, you get them kind of investigated, but look at the circumstances, look at the behaviours that are ingrained a little bit, and then if you find there's a mechanism you can access that makes you feel calm again, that's the route out of this overload, even if it manifests differently to how you might have felt the stresses appear in your body in the past.